People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first, and Landmark of Taylorville. I'm your host, Grayson Bauman. Joining us in this segment is Dr. Kent Redfield. And Dr. Redfield is the Professor Emeritus of Political Science with the University of Illinois Springfield. He joins us by phone today. Dr. Redfield, how are you?
Just fine.
And it's great to hear from you today with a important topic and a pertinent topic at that as well. There's been so much news coming out about Governor J.B. Pritzker and his announcement of running for a third term. Right now, Dr. Redfield, where do you sit with this? How unusual is this? What are you seeing and what are you making of this situation?
Well, historically, it's very unusual. We've only had one Illinois governor that has won a third term. And we really only had four sitting governors who tried to get a third term. And, all of them were defeated until Jim Thompson came on the scene. And, he had a 2-year term where we're transitioning to electing our governors in non-presidential elections. And then he won, 3 more terms. So he had 14 years as governor. And that's even nationally, that's unusual. His 14 years actually ranks him 16th among every governor that's ever served in the United States in terms of how long they were in office. So it's very unusual for a governor to get 3 terms. So this is a historic. Would be a historic thing. He'd be the first Democrat, obviously, to ever get more than two terms. And compared to 4 years or 8 years ago when he was running against incumbent Governor Bruce Rauner, he's in a much more favorable situation this time around because of his ability to self-finance and because of the fact that the Republicans in the state are in a down period. I don't think anybody would challenge that. They're super minority in the legislature and they hold no statewide office. So there's not kind of when the U.S. Senate seat opened up, when Durbin said he wasn't going to run, there were Democratic office holders immediately lining up to run. And you haven't, you at this point really haven't seen that on the Republican side as far as challenging Pritzker.
I think it would be totally fair to say they're on the downside, I guess, of it. I really don't think any argument would come from most anybody there. And then the other thing that really stood out to me was Jim Thompson ranking 16th among governors across the United States, any governor in terms of that term served. You said 14 years total. Tell us a little bit, and it sounds like you think Pritzker will come out favorably in this situation. What are his chances of winning re-election?
Well, if you just look at general favorability polls, and they do these, nationally, everyone, firms will go out and they'll do polls in individual states and stuff. And so, he's not right at the top in terms of favorable rankings, but he's comfortably, above 50%. And so he starts with that. The other thing is it's hard to overstate the advantage that he has from being a billionaire because you can spend your own money without limit. We can have contribution limits on private groups giving or third party giving, but if it's your money, the Supreme Court's been pretty clear that you can spend your own money. So these sums are really staggering. He's spent over $150 million each of the 2 times that he ran for governor. And if you add up all of the money that he's put in Illinois politics since 2013, which would have been the start of the election cycle when he ran the first time. He's contributed more than $400 million of his own money to influence just Illinois politics. So he's got a big advantage in money. At the same time, the people that were financing his two major opponents last time he ran, Darren Bailey, and then there was initially a lot of buzz for Richard Austin. Bailey was financed primarily by Richard Hewland, who's a billionaire Republican donor, and Richard Austin, who is the mayor of Aurora, was financed by Ken Griffin, who, again, a Republican billionaire donor. And both of those individuals are no longer active in Illinois politics. So so it's going to be hard for the Republicans to raise money. And currently, some of the traditional funding sources of Republicans are much less prevalent than they used to be: manufacturing, retail, business groups. On the other hand, the biggest donors in Illinois politics are trade unions, teacher unions, trial lawyers, hospitals, nursing homes. Those are all kind of the Democratic base. So it's going to be very difficult to get anybody that's going to run against Pritzker is going to have to rapidly build name recognition. And that's hard to do if you don't have a lot of money or if you don't hold, a prominent political office. There obviously you could have someone who was a celebrity that would have some name recognition. So it's the assumption is, and you never say anything is a certainty in politics, is that he's going to cruise to the Democratic nomination and then get reelected fairly easily. But as soon as you say that, there'll be some unforeseen event that'll make you look like an idiot. But right now, that's certainly what it looks like.
I was going to say we saw one of those about 11 years ago, so I think it'd be hard to rule just about anything out when it comes to that. I think a lot of folks are sorry.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I think a lot of folks, Dr. Redfield, are kind of wondering how this plays into a potential presidential candidacy and a potential run at the presidency as of 2028. How do you see the two things kind of coinciding? Can they coexist, him being the governor and seeking a potential presidential nomination?
Yeah, it certainly doesn't hurt Pritzker to be running and to be, get reelected. As a sitting governor, he would have a lot more national visibility and credibility. The issues that he's going to be running on, things that he touts when he talks about his record, protecting, reproductive health care, education funding, a strong defense of immigrants' rights. Those kinds of issues play well with the national audience. So, things that he's going to be working on in Illinois are things that give him visibility nationally. And he's not running to run for president at this point. It really just is. If that were, but it would still make sense if he were, because it keeps his options open. But when Pritzker talks, when people talk about Pritzker running for office for president, that seems a lot more credible when you're, have been watching him in Illinois for, the last 8 years, and he's obviously now the most visible Illinois politician. But running for president is very hard, and his national profile at this point is not, he's not everybody's first or second choice to be the Democratic nominee. So I think, I think what he's doing is exactly what he should be doing. He seems to want to still be governor and pursue it. He cares about the issues, and it gives him options. But again, we're trying to predict what it's going to look like in 2026. Predicting exactly it's going to look like in 2028 is even more of a difficult difficult task. So I think he'll be he's doing exactly what he should be doing, regardless of his motivation. And so I don't think we should immediately say, well, who's going to be the lieutenant governor who will have to take over, if he gets elected president. Well, that's an interesting thing to speculate about, but we're a long way from getting to, having to worry about those sorts of things.
Let's pump the brakes a little bit. Let's slow it down a little bit, and remember that there are 49 other states that make up the United States. So I can appreciate what you're. I'll put it into my own words here, what you're throwing down there a little bit. And, but I appreciate you breaking that down for us, giving us an idea of how unusual it truly is for a third term governor. And not only that, for a Democrat to have never been a third term governor here in the state of Illinois. And so just moving forward, we're just going to have to pump the brakes and keep watching and seeing what is going to take place. Joining us by phone today, Dr. Kent Redfield, Professor Emeritus of Political Science with the University of Illinois Springfield. We'll come back around with him, and we'll talk more on your information station, WTIM.
WTIM.
Near in Bungie Chevron Ag Renewables.
Yeah, and you're breaking into the renewable fuels market and the profit potential, blah, blah, blah.
It's not blah, blah. It's a golden opportunity for a new revenue stream for farmers.
It's all blah, blah until I see numbers.
There's an online calculator that'll estimate your profit potential. Check it out at bungieag.com/wintercanola.
Now you're making sense. I'll take a look.
Hi, this is John Wright, fourth generation owner from Wright's Furniture here in Taylorville.
And I'm Alex Wright. For 135 years, we've been known for so much more than offering the best in local quality home furnishings.
We're rooted in our community and committed to giving back to the place we're so proud to call home. Because that's where our hearts have always been, and this is where we'll always be.
Faces you know.
People you can trust. Wright's, the first name in home furnishings.
Visit us today or at wrightsfurniture.com.
Hi, this is Will Perkins with Taylorville Community Credit Union. Find out about all the products and services we provide by clicking our icon at TaylorvilleDailyNews.com.
Enjoy the beautiful flower garden, hop on the bus, and enjoy the weather. When you're a resident at Taylorville Estates Assisted Living, they encourage independence and enrich lives. Find out available vacancies and get on the waiting list by clicking their icon at TaylorvilleDailyNews.com.
WTIM.
And we're back with the WTIM Morning Show here on your information station. Our morning show, it's brought to you by People's Bank and Trust, where they put people first, and Landmark of Taylorville. I'm your host, Grayson Bauman. Joining us in this segment, Dr. Kent Redfield. Dr. Redfield is the Professor Emeritus of Political Science with the University of Illinois Springfield. We talked quite a bit there about Governor J.B. Pritzker, his plans for not only a third term here as Illinois governor, but also maybe potential presidential plans. But that's a ways down the road. We want to talk about something that might be coming much, much sooner. There is a major funding increase in the reconciliation bill, but there's also some cuts that are being made. And thankfully, we have Dr. Redfield to help explain that. What can you tell us about the reconciliation bill and what to expect on the ground here?
Well, one of the things that is in that bill, and again, has to go through the Senate, it goes back to the House. You know, they have to get an agreement on all of this, but I would think you're probably going to get major portions of things that President Trump wants. And so, specifically for Illinois, you know, the president has talked about targeting the major Democratic cities that are sanctuary cities. All of the action has been in Los Angeles. We even have, the National Guard is there. There's really not any more riot activity, but they are in fact insisting immigration and ICE. There's a major jump in the funding for all of those activities, and so they're going to hire a lot more people, agents, and so. They're going to have the capacity to go out and to expand what's happening in Los Angeles to cities like Chicago and New York and other major metropolitan areas. So you're going to, that's certainly one thing that's going to be there. In terms of, when we're doing a bunch of things in terms of making permanent tax cuts permanent and new tax cuts. In order to fund that, there have to be cuts. And so there are major concerns about the funding for Medicaid, Medicaid is money that goes to support healthcare and services for people who are poor. Old senior citizens, not myself, it's Social Security and Medicare. Those are that's kind of age-based, but Medicaid is based on poverty and your ability to pay. And so there are cuts that could affect how much reimbursement we get from the federal government. So now we've got expedited reimbursement that we get reimbursed at 90%. If that goes away, it would drop down to 50%. That would have a major impact on our ability to keep the services that we're providing under Medicaid. And there could be changes in the funding formulas that allow essentially hospitals, nursing homes to, they are taxed, but that tax leverages a lot more federal money. And so there are serious concerns about, 3-4 years out, what's going to happen to our ability to provide the level of healthcare services and support that we've been providing. So, these are really huge unknowns that could make our the budget our state budget. They might have to come back and redo the whole thing.
even more tight than it might already be. And this is why 20 minutes is just not enough time to talk to Dr. Kent Redfield, Professor Emeritus of Political Science with the University of Illinois Springfield. We didn't even get to talk injunctions. Maybe we'll get to do that another time. Kent, thank you so much for taking your time today.
Thank you.
Dr.
Always
Kent
good to talk.
Appreciate it. Dr. Kent Redfield, Professor Emeritus of Political Science with the University of Illinois Springfield on WTIM, your information station.
Senators still debating the president's spending and tax cut bill. The debate extending into the early morning hours. Now senators are going over a series of amendments to the bill.